Arnold Schwarzenegger served as the governor of California from 2003 to 2011, and he joins me now. Governor Schwarzenegger, welcome back to Meet the Press.
Thank you, Chuck. It's wonderful to be back.
You know, this has been a year for outsider candidates. It's obviously something you're familiar with. Many people have made some comparisons of your candidacy in 2003 and Donald Trump's today. What similarities do you see, and what are the differences?
Well, I think that, I don't really study that much of, what is the difference between Donald Trump and my candidacy. I study much more the field polls and the USC Schwarzenegger polls that we have just done about what do the people really think and what is the main interest in the people's minds when we have our election now on June 6th. So I mean that is really, or June 7th, I should say. This is really my interest, and this is why we did the polls, and this is why we really came up with these wonderful studies, and they're quite interesting. I think when you look at it, the important thing that comes out of that is that 69% of the people want our politicians to work together, and I think this should be a message to Democrats and Republicans to work together. And this is why people are very upset about Washington today.
You know, I want to play something that you said in 2004 about what made you a Republican, and then find out if that still holds today. Here it is.
Then I heard Nixon speak. He was talking about free enterprise, getting the government off your back, lowering the taxes and strengthening the military. Listening to Nixon speak sounded more like a breath of fresh air. I said to my friend, I said, what party is he? My friend said, he's a Republican. I said, then I am a Republican.
Can you comfortably say that today with Donald Trump as the standard bearer for the Republican Party?
I comfortably can say that I am a Republican, and I always will be a Republican, because the Republican Party has a big tent, and there was not always things that I agreed with, or they didn't agree with me many times. But the fact of the matter is that's the philosophy. Everything that you've heard is exactly the same. And I think that, but what is more important about it is not what do I think and about Donald Trump. We have to talk about the bigger issue, and this is what do the people really feel. And the fascinating thing about the poll was that both Democrats and Republicans found it most important to really improve the economy and to create more jobs. They were also in sync when it comes to Social Security, to save Social Security, and to really take care of public schools. And they are concerned about the public education in general. And those are the kind of issues that Democrats and Republicans are concerned about. Of course, they have different ways of solving those problems, and depending on if they're Democrat or Republican.
Well, let me just ask it straightforward. Are you ready to support Donald Trump for president? I know you were a John Kasich supporter. You went and campaigned for him. Are you going to support Trump? And will you go to the convention in Cleveland?
Well, Chuck, as I said, to me the most important thing is now to talk about the latest poll numbers and how the people of California feel and how the people in America basically feel. Because I think it is important that we go and bring both of the parties together. The more we go to the left, and the more we go to the right, I believe of what President Eisenhower said. Politics is like the road. The left and the right represents the gutter, and the middle is drivable. And I think this is exactly where the action is in the middle. I've seen it when I was governor of the state of California.
Yeah.
I have seen it firsthand that only when we brought Democrats and Republicans together, we could really solve very important issues. I remember that's how we really started rebuilding California and invested $60 billion in infrastructure. That's when we go and created the AB 32, where we made a commitment to reducing our greenhouse gases by 25% by the year 2020, where we updated our renewables.
Right.
And all this great stuff started happening when both of the parties worked together.
Governor, I can't help but notice, though, you're avoiding saying anything about Trump. You're not saying you're for him. You're not saying you're against him. You're trying to stay out of it. I get it. But is that what you're trying to do here? By you not saying anything, you're actually making a statement.
No, not really, because I try to stay focused. Remember, there's one thing that I've learned over the years when I promoted bodybuilding and fitness and my movies and politics and issues and so on, is to stay focused. So today I want to talk about our poll numbers and our polls that we have taken, the field polls that the USC Schwarzenegger Institute released this last week.
Right.
And I want to talk about that because that is really important for the state of California. It's important that the people know how they feel and in which direction to go. And it also will help the candidates to listen to the people carefully and not to deviate from that and to really talk about those very important issues. Since we have the primaries coming up in California, I think the presidential candidates, whoever they are, have to address those issues.
And finally, I want to ask you a question about your native country, Austria, because what was fascinating is that you could argue that they had an election which that came down to somebody from the far left, maybe similar to a Bernie Sanders, and someone from the far right, a nativist of sorts. And nobody was happy with their choices. All of a sudden, this country is experiencing an appeal of a socialist and the appeal of a nativist. What lessons do you think Americans should take away from this?
I think that it is pretty much in many different countries I've seen that they're looking for an outsider, and people are dissatisfied with the status quo, and people are dissatisfied basically with the action that is being created in those capitals, that politicians are not keeping their promises and politicians don't solve the problems. And this is why you see in our poll numbers that 69% of the people say the politicians have to work together. That is the most important thing, and they have to come to a compromise. And in Washington, not much is getting done. Some of it is getting done, but not much. And I think that to spend billions of dollars on that capital, and it is the worst investment because nothing is getting done. So therefore, the people are looking for something else, and they don't know where to turn to. And so this is what you see in America, and this is what you have seen in Austria, and this is what you see in Germany, and this is what you see in France, and you see this all over the place.
All right, I'm going to ask you one last time. Do you plan on publicly saying whether you'll be for Trump?
I will make an announcement before the election, you can be sure of that. But I will do it my way, which is always an unusual way. As you remember that I announced my candidacy for governor on the Tonight Show. So that was very unusual, and I would do exactly the same thing also with the endorsement. So I would study the various different candidates, what they represent and all this stuff, and I would then make up my mind, and I would then make the endorsement. So I will make an endorsement, but it will not be here, because then that will be the headline.
Well, and I guess you're saying we're too usual of a place to do this. We're not unusual enough. Anyway, Governor Schwarzenegger, it's a pleasure, sir. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you very much for
Hey, NBC News fans, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down here, and click on any of the videos over here to watch the latest interviews, show highlights, and digital exclusives. Thanks for watching.